Good morning, Nigeria. It's Thursday, the 16th of April, and the political conversation is already taking shape. I'm Oluwayemi Adelakon, and this is Daybreak Live, where the headlines meet the hard questions.
And I am Samson Balogun. The day begins with a defining statement from former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, who says that the 2027 election will be his final outing in the presidential race.
A familiar contender drawing a line but also raising fresh questions. Is this a final push or a signal that Nigeria's political space may be opening up?
And beyond the declaration, what does that mean for party dynamics, succession plans, and the plan for a younger politician in the years ahead?
In a moment, Daybreak News brings you the major developments shaping the nation and the world.
After that, we turn our attention to newspaper headlines and analysis, where we break down the stories driving public conversation alongside our analyst this morning, Afolabi Afolami.
Then after that, we turn to the big story. This morning, we take on a long-standing national question, the unfinished problem of federalism. Why states still depend on Abuja to survive? So,
from revenue to responsibility, the debate continues. Are states truly federating units or extension of the center?
And joining us is Sam Woko, Deputy Editor with the Nigerian Tribune, bringing perspective to a conversation that sits at the heart of Nigeria's structure.
We'll also bring you Trend Watch, tracking the stories, reactions, and conversations Nigerians are engaging right now on social media.
Right. It's mid-April and the issues are not slowing down at all.
This is Daybreak Live on Million Television. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning, Liam.
We decided to slow down as well. This, I like the way you said that.
Well, maybe I tried to make it more inviting.
Okay, okay.
And that seems to be a little bit interesting.
Right.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Samson.
Yeah, good to be back here.
Yeah.
And just like you mentioned earlier, the headlines are not slowing down. You know, stories get to develop. And you have reasons to go back again and see what you read earlier, if you actually read it yourself, or maybe someone whispered in your ears. Okay. But this particular one seems to be quite true. As Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, His Excellency Atiku Abubakar, former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has come out to say, look, I'm drawing the lines. At this point, I feel like this will be my last time of contesting for any elective positions in Nigeria, especially the presidency. At least that is what he has chased for so many years. And it doesn't seem to be close to being in that office since he's been contesting. A few times he was so close, but then some other times it's looked much more distant than expected. But the most important thing is, I think it is time for Nigerian politicians to also know when to draw the lines. I mean, maybe find the full stop and say, look, at this point, let me become an elder statesman, and then leave the opportunity to vie for public office to younger Nigerians. Right. Something crossed my mind right now. Recently, during the crisis of the ADC, Bala Nofio came out to say, look, if you are above 55 years, just consider yourself out of the race in this my own ADC. You know, everyone, they have been laying claims to their own political party, my own PDP, my own ADC, and other political parties, including Labour Party. We had different factions. And someone made mention of the fact that, look, with these kind of things, I mean, they were at the convention center, and they also had issues. We had some people who also came out to say, look, we are not too comfortable with some arrangements. Solomon Dalong, for example, Barrister Solomon Dalong, and so many other people, they had issues at the convention ground. And someone was saying, is this the presidency again? So I think this also boils down to the fact that people like Atiku Abubakar have not been able to stop the ADC from this free fall we have seen in the last few weeks. They have not been able to find a common ground to settle all the problems within the party. Even with the impending court cases, they still went ahead to have their national convention, which might have further compounded their woes in that political party. Now, let's check the profile of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar himself and see how long he has been. You know, sometimes when you have fought for far too long, I think it is not worth it to actually continue fighting, because you feel like, well, I don't see anything coming out of this fight anymore. In 1992, he contested for president under the Social Democratic Party, SDP, but lost the party ticket to Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, of course, from the Southwest at that time. 1993, he contested for vice president, paired with Abiola at that time, won the election widely believed, but it was annulled by the military government. And then we returned to democracy era. In 1999, he contested, and of course, as vice president with the PDP, won and of course served with President Olusegun Obasanjo between 1999 to 2007. And then there he began another race to become president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. 2007, he contested for president, Action Congress, lost to Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. In 2011, he contested for president, PDP primaries, lost the ticket to Goodluck Ebele Jonathan at that time. And 2015, he contested for president, APC primaries. He lost the ticket to Muhammadu Buhari, General Muhammadu Buhari at that time, who eventually became PMB from GMB. And in 2019, he contested for president, the PDP. That time, he lost the general elections to Muhammadu Buhari again. And in 2023, for president PDP, he lost the general election to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Do not forget that he has contested a total of 8 major elections. Okay, and presidential attempts including the primaries, about 6 of them, and was successfully elected as vice president only in 1999. But do not forget that prior to 1999, he contested and won the election to be the governor of his state in Adamawa State until the election for the presidency came on board and was unpicked. He felt like that was an upgrade to being the governor of his state, and then he went ahead to be vice president to President Olusegun Obasanjo at that time. So he's contested so many times, and he's won his fair share of the election. He was on the same ticket with Olusegun Obasanjo. So the narrative that Atiku was a serial loser by some people in some quarters. When the election is coming around, people tend to say a lot of things. Some people tagged him a serial loser but something has been clear. Ever since he lost the ticket to MKO Abiola at that time, on only one occasion did he lose the primary ticket to any other person. He was always winning the primaries, but then might just lose at the polls itself. But the challenge now is that is Atiku going all out in the 2023, in the run into the 2027 general elections? Maybe say, look, whatever I have to give, I have to, get the ticket for my party, and then see what exactly I can do and go all out in this election. There are going to be challenges. Okay, there are party challenges which is yet to be solved, and his structures for now are with the ADC. Are we going to see some people within the ADC pull out? Yesterday, he made some comments on social media and, of course, on the pages of the newspaper. I think that was late yesterday evening. I said, look, whoever emerges as the candidate of the ADC in this current running to the election, I'm going to support. Right. And Atiku is that person that has never been known to step down for anybody. So, what will happen to the ADC? Are we going to see people like Peter Obi eventually settling for, vice presidential tickets? Or maybe there might just be a shift.
Second, maybe you can still try. But then, just like you mentioned, a lot of persons are saying, you need to stop contesting because around 2027 is going to be around 80 years already. And then I like that, he was able to see that because many Nigerians are actually looking forward to him saying that so that they can be rest assured that if at all you don't win the primaries, can you step down for another candidate? And then he also mentioned quite a number of things, and then I think I want to mention some of the things that he said. He also spoke to the issue of the current administration, and then he said this administration is the worst that he has seen. And so just like you mentioned, looking at what is going on within the ADC, how sure are we that if at all you people win the election, you're going to do any better? Because at the end of the day, people will say, before you pour out the water you have in the house, because rain is falling, you need to be very careful and check well whether that rain, whether it will last.
Or it will sustain you.
Or it will sustain you. So Nigerians are bothered, especially because if you look at all these, heavyweights in the ADC, most of them have been in one position or the other. We have former governors who served for 8 years. We have former governors who served for 4 years. Some
served as ministers under the APC administration.
Exactly.
Some with Muhammadu Buhari. Some even they tried to be minister under this administration. They got screened.
Look, they
were screened out, including Malam Nasir
El-Rufai. So if you check these people, they've served in one capacity or the other, and people are asking, even Peter Obi that served for governor for 8 years, especially anytime he talks about maybe education or electricity, people will ask him, when you were governor,
just to corroborate your facts, Omoyele Sowore asked him a question yesterday. He said, when you were governor in Anambra State, how many schools did you build? How many hospitals did you build? And then you will see some online warriors come out to say, no, he saved Anambra State from going bankrupt, and he invested Anambra money. Where?
He left money.
They said it's an investment. And then we begin to ask questions. Where? Is it the same bank that he was a majority shareholder? And, I mean, people tend to, they are blindfolded by the truth. And when you come out and say, look, these things are meant to be like this, they will argue with you.
Of course, they are going to argue with you. And then now, let me go back to the issue of, if Atiku decides to step down, or maybe if he doesn't win the primaries, which we are not even sure of yet. But that's a good development to say, if at all I don't win, I'm going to step down. I think both Atiku and Obi are saying the same thing. Because on that table, Atiku and Obi were on that table different days, if I'm correct, if my brain serves me correctly. And then when they also asked Obi that same question to say, if at all you don't win the primaries, will you still defect? He now said if he needs to defect 20 times, he will do that because he cannot align with people who are not going to do well for the people. He said that. So because, I mean, even the interviewer was like, you said you were not going to leave ABGA. But then this was his defense. He said he left ABGA because of certain things that were going on in the party and he's not so cool with that. So he had to leave. So he left ABGA, he left PDP, left Labour Party. And if care is not taken, with what we are saying,
maybe
he
will
might
not
leave
be cool.
the ADC too.
He will not be cool with what's happening in the ADC, and now he will have to leave.
Exactly. So he said he cannot align with anybody.
Do you know some people accused him
right.
of being the one that causes problem with the party and then leaves them in disarray and then leaves?
Exactly. It was an angle that we touched yesterday.
ABGA was perfectly fine before we became governor. He left it polarized and left. He went to the PDP. The problem, became brother in the PDP. He left the PDP. A perfectly organized Labour Party was handed over to Peter Obi. What did he do with it? Instead of now settling the issue, if you have issues with Abure, why not call him and say, look, let's sort these things out. Then we had different factions, Lamidi Papa, the Nenadi faction, and the Abure faction. And then the party became polarized. Peter Obi left that party again. He's now in the ADC. The same ADC he has gone to. I'm not saying it's the problem in the ADC, but then, of course, we can see what is going on in the ADC.
I think it's
in Oyo State alone, they had their state congress at 2 different locations, different factions. Chief BC Laka, who joined the party maybe less than 6 months ago, organized his own. I mean, how do you do that? Because it is unexplainable for me, quite inexplicable. You joined the party about 6 or 7 months ago, maybe less than that. And then you had your own faction of the party already. You created your own faction of the party, had your own state convention. I mean, if you are going to take the party from some people, you must have the convention with them and then defeat them in the convention, and the party goes to some other people, and then they become members, ordinary members. But then you left them, sitting chairman whose tenure has not expired, secretary, publicity secretary whose tenure is they still have about a few months, less than a year to the end of their tenure, and then you say you have had a convention, so they should just live like that. You see, even if ADC win the 2027 general elections, I don't see them smelling that office. They might create problem, just like they've been doing, having rallies here and there, protests here and there. That's all they will do, okay? Because you have not solved the major problem in the party, which is every stakeholder must be on the same page. And then you have gone ahead to have the Congress is still yet to be settled, where, which faction are we, how do we ratify this problem? And then you have gone ahead to have your national convention. Who does that?
It's really a problem. And then I always say, because even these opposition parties, they have alleged that the ruling party is trying to cause issues for them.
Ow.
But then when you check the foundation, at that point when the party was handed over to the likes of David Mark, Aregbesola, it was at that point that the problem started, because certain persons were not comfortable with that arrangement, especially because the national chairman at that time, they said his tenure expired already. So these are the issues. And then if care is not taken, I read a tweet yesterday on the show where somebody said that problem will always happen in any party that Peter Obi defects to. And then he was able to say a lot, like check it from ABGA, down to PDP, down to Labour Party, and down to ADC that we have now. So that's why he said. So when he said that he's not going to be bothered if he needs to jump to other political party. He even mentioned 20. He's only been to how many political parties? So if he is not taking, he might decide to explore. So at the end of the day, I think if these two persons, because Obedient has said it over time, that they are not going to support a vice president No, they are not going to support Peter Obi as vice president. Even Aisha Yusufu said I think she's one of the maybe big shot, or let me say top supporters of Peter Obi, said she won't be supporting him. Even Obedient Online, they have said they are not going to agree or support Peter Obi in any political party.
Will never be vice president.
He will never be,
any
because
of them.
He's been a vice president before, so it's like a dilemma
He's bigger
now.
than any one of them in that party. I don't see Atiku Abubakar becoming vice president to anybody in that party.
Right.
So it's a problem already. How do they want to solve this? The only reason why Obi will get the ticket is if Atiku says, look, I'm no longer interested, just take it. That's the only reason.
Or maybe there's a miracle and then Obi wins the primaries.
It's
but
impossible.
The chances are slim.
You see,
looking at how he's been
if
able
there's
to
ever a title to
over
be
time.
given to Atiku Abubakar, it should be king of primaries.
Best in winning primary
He
elections.
understands that.
Now that the new electorate is even saying that, the entire delegate.
You know why
vote,
Atiku always
unlike
win the
before.
primary election? Is because Atiku Abubakar yes, he's been there, but he's a grassroots politician. Everywhere you get to in Nigeria, there is an Atiku Abubakar vanguard. There are people who are loyal to Atiku, not the party, but to Atiku Abubakar. So when he moves, they move with him. And then he brings them into your political party, creates his own structure, and then they fight for the structure of the party with you. That's what he does. So when you want to talk, he becomes a major stakeholder in your party the moment he enters that party. Okay, so he's a nationalist. He's a person that his party has tentacles across the country. So he's a national politician. You cannot say the same for someone like Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, right? Because his major stronghold will have to be his base in Kano State. And then the moment he starts leaving the north, it continues, the strength with which he carries continues to reduce. It shrinks. So you cannot say the same for Peter Obi too, because his tentacles maybe is majorly online. You know, some you call them obedient. Some of them they are majorly keypad warriors. And I tell people that what happened in the last election might not likely repeat itself in the next general elections. In the last election, people were angry. Okay, they were angry at the APC administration so much that they were willing to do everything and anything. But if you check the momentum in the build-up to the 2023 general elections, it has definitely dropped. Now, while traveling, okay, you drop some of your baggages. And Peter Obi has been able to do that. When he left the Labour Party, he dropped Dati Baba Ahmed, who also had his own followership. Because you cannot say the movement only had Peter Obi's followers. He also had that of his vice presidential candidate. And he dropped that in the Labour Party.
Who also declared intention to contest
at that time. So he left some of his followers there. And while moving to, some people said because he left Labour Party, they are not going with him. He also left those people in the Labour Party. And some are even angry that he has been able to mix with the likes of Atiku Abubakar, the same people he condemned years ago, and called them thieves on social media. He called them thieves on national television.
Enemy in politics.
No, so, yes, that is the problem. So, if the problem is now that, the moment, you blame the APC that if you come to the APC, your sins are forgiven. But then, you have gone to the same people you condemned years ago. So does that mean that you have forgiven them for making the country dry, just like you mentioned earlier? So the problem is you are not different from these people you have condemned. If it's so easy for you to now blame with them and then you think your paradise is going to be built by these people, then you are in trouble. Because some people will now want to dissociate from you just because you are now rolling with this kind of people. I think someone mentioned it the day before yesterday on this same platform. So it's becoming more and more of a problem. Before you know it, Peter Obi will lose that relevance he currently carries. If he continues to move from one political... there is no way you are not going to water down the quality some people say you carry, even though some people will argue that you don't carry such quality in the first place. Because somebody, for example, will come out and tell you that Obi is not special. He has said it over. In fact, I don't need to... If you go on any major newspaper now, you will see that he has condemned Peter Obi at every step of the way, saying, look, this person that people have been hyping, I don't see what you are hyping in him because this, that. He asked him, how many hospitals did you build while he was governor? How many schools did you build when you were governor of Anambra State? How many road projects did you embark on? And people are saying, yes, Omoyele Sowore is, of course, some people actually queued behind Omoyele Sowore and said it was right. But then, the issue is, when you now start arguing these issues, some people who don't want to go, they will not want to argue with facts with you. They would rather model everything up and say, look, we are obedient, we are this, we are that, and then give you reasons why it's better than the current administration. But then antecedents is always, I mean, your precedence, your quality must precede you. Okay, wherever you get to, people must have heard or must have known that, oh, this person brings this kind of quality to the table. If you have not done it before, I don't see how you can do it when given the opportunity, because sometimes experience counts. Have you done it before? If you cannot solve the problem of a party like Labour Party, ABGA are that ecosystem. They are in that system. Because they are in that system. Because, yes, Obi was governor 8 years. Amici was governor 8 years too. And in fact, before Amici became governor, he was, he was in the House of Assembly in his state. In fact, he was a speaker, and then he became a minister under President Muhammadu Buhari. So you can see that the profile has expanded beyond that of what Obi carries. Away from there, you can also talk about Rauf Aregbesola, governor 8 years in his state, and then he became minister. Before that, he was commissioner for works in Lagos State. So that profile also has expanded. You want to talk about so many other people on that platform? Okay, we don't even need to mention Atiku Abubakar because we just read his profile. Was vice president for 8 years. I mean, that's arguably, one of the biggest positions you could ever want to achieve as a politician in Nigeria. And tell me, how will he intends to win primaries against these people? I don't see it.
Right. I think you have a very valid argument. And let me start from the issue of coalition, because if you look at the coalition that brought in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, it was obvious that they had a leader who was interested in bringing everybody together. But when I take ADC, I don't see that figure in the ADC.
It's not there.
Somebody that can actually bring all this big, or let me say heavyweights together, and then tell them this is what we are going to do.
Give them the direction.
And of course, tell them that, okay, because some persons are saying the reasons why a lot of persons will not even leave the APC is because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu knows how to placate those who are not happy with certain things. A woman, I can't remember her name now, she went on a podcast of a popular presenter in Nigeria, and she said that she spoke with some members of the APC, the governors especially, that, are you even happy in the APC? And they said, we are not really happy. But then, looking at the situation, this man is trying to just, comfort us in a way. So is that figure for the APC? I don't see that in the ADC. And then that's why it's going to be, I'm not saying they don't have what it takes to actually overthrow this current administration, but they need to do better. They need to find a common ground, a closure. Ego, the same ego that killed PDP might kill ADC, because if you look at majority of those in the ADC, they came from PDP. And so if care is not taken, if they can't tame that ego, I'm sorry, it might not provide anything good. And then Obi, do you know there are rumors in town that Obi might go back to Labour Party? Because, I mean, some have even said the reason why he left his VP there is because there may be chances that he might still go back. It's a valid argument, whether you like it or not. Who says, that's why I said, when you mentioned the issue of, Atiku, or let me say these people rolling with some of them before, who says El-Rufai, as we speak, cannot defer to the APC? There are no permanent enemies in politics. Anything can happen. Self-interest will always come before national interest. And then Atiku also said something that I would love us to talk about. Speaking about experience, he mentioned that Jonathan was inexperienced and it led to his failure to manage the affairs of the country during his time as president. Jonathan was was a governor at the time. But then he coming out to say he doesn't have the experience, and that's why he was unable to manage the affairs. People online are even trying to maybe tell Atiku that, no, that's not correct. Jonathan had it, he was vice president before, and then he was able to actually do certain things, even though certain things were beyond his power. And that was why, when he contested the second time, Jonathan considered to defeat. And then he accepted defeat because he said, his election, or let me say his political ambition, is not worth the blood of any Nigerian. And then back to the issue of experience. He also mentioned, because I watched the interview yesterday, he said states are being governed by relatively young people failing woefully. And then he gave example of Anambra State. He said most of these people, they are so young. He said he even made mention of Edo State as well. He said if you look at them, they are young and they are not experienced at all. He said these young people. So people are asking, are you saying that for you to be a successful governor, you have to be close to 70? Or you have to be above 70.
How do you gather the experience?
How do you gather the experience if you have not worked, if you have not done anything before? So these are the issues. So it speaks to the fact that Atiku, in a way, thinks experience come with age. I don't really know how to interpret that, but that's what so many Nigerians are trying to agree to. Because he's saying that Jonathan he didn't have enough experience. Okay, now that you are close to 70, what if you don't get What if you don't get, you don't get the ticket? What if you don't win? Close to 80. So at the end of the day, we need to unlearn certain things in this country. That experience and expertise is not really about age. It's about who can do it. And that's why he speaks to Obi as well. Because even though his supporters will not agree with you, Abigail Dabiri said something a few days ago. He said, well, the obedient, actually, I want to say this in a very diplomatic way now. He said the obedient might actually cause the downfall of Peter Obi if care is not taken, because they find a way to just oppose anybody who is not in good terms with him. And then she said that, and then she's not the first person to say that as well. So it speaks to these people beyond what you are telling us. There was a time they asked Obi one question, that what are you going to do differently? Even Atiku was asked that same question, that what are you going to do differently? Because he mentioned that he's not satisfied with whatever it is that Bola Ahmed Tinubu is doing, and then he even said this is the worst administration that he has seen. When you were vice,
what would you have done?
What would you have done in this situation? That's what Nigerians want to hear. That's why I think this debate, the presidential debate, should be a bit tough. But then one problem I have in this country is that even when you can articulate well, even when you can speak good grammar, even when you have the ideas, it still doesn't guarantee that you even win primaries. Right. Let me give an example of the last debates that happened in the APC. I'm talking about within the APC, and Professor Yemi Osinbajo articulate, he speaks well, he has good ideas according to some Nigerians, but he didn't win the primaries. So I tell you, he goes beyond that. So
it's not about English.
It's not about
English. About understanding of the job.
Can you play the game the way they play it? And that's why I said, somebody says something, and this person is a cleric. He said the reason why that maybe the people who can really do good for Nigerians might not get there is because they don't understand the game. They don't know what the people want. So these people, they understand the people what they know how to come in, and it's a problem. Don't forget, somebody said one time that he doesn't give shishi, and then Nigerians came out to say, is that really true? Because to win any election in this country,
you must spend money.
You have to spend money.
Someone even made an accusation recently and said, look, so person paid content creators 5 million naira, I think monthly or thereabout, for them to support him. So you saw so many contents, content creators became politicians. They were analyzing Nigerian politics at that time. And then you now go back and say, look, could these people have done it for free at that time? I mean, that's not possible. Because it takes a lot of courage to now switch from being apolitical to now become, a spokesperson for one particular person and say it's free. I mean, that says, it means that you have thrown away all you have built over the years if you fail. Okay, so I don't believe someone is somewhere that doesn't spend shishi. You just might not spend it in front of everyone, but you spend. I'm sorry to say it, but you spend money. Because you know how much it costs to buy a presidential ticket, reform in Nigeria.
Election in universities, you spend money. Let's not even talk about presidential election.
I mean, we should just cut to the chase, cut all of that and say, look, let's just be factual. If you cannot be truthful with Nigerians on how things are being done, especially when you are still vying for office, I don't see any way you'll be honest with anybody if you eventually become the president of the country. And that for me speaks to the fact that someone says he doesn't spend money. But then how did you contest and then have party agents across the country?
How did you win governorship election?
Where did the money come from? You must have spent money. You paid, for the presidential form in your political party. It's not cheap. It's not free. And then you are saying you don't spend shishi. Okay? I mean, where did the private jets come from? And even if someone paid for all of that, you still spent money. Because these things do not come for free. But then let's also, be honest. Just like, lastly, before we go, you mentioned something when you were speaking, and you said there is no leader in the, in the ADC. There is no unifying figure. There is that factor that says, look, this is where we should go, and gives them the reason why they should all go there. Is not in that party. And that was the problem the PDP had when it crashed. The moment someone like Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, left the party and said, look, and he said he wanted to become an elder statesman. The PDP became more or less like sheep with no shepherd. Everyone, scattered here and there. And then the ego battle began. Everyone wanted to become the leader of the party. And the moment some of them could not become leader of the party, everyone decided to be the king in their own terrain. So if you are going to need me, I want to dictate what will happen in my territory.
And anti-party was the order of the day.
That was what began. So if someone now does something against your will in your own territory, then you now go and work against the party. That's what we have been saying.
Some even went on national TV. They were bold.
And they said it.
Like
We are going to work against you. And they did it.
We worked against the party. Even same Matiku, there was he left Eagle Square at some point when he was not, pleased with the zoning system. And then some persons alleged that he worked for the APC at that time because he was not satisfied with what his party decided to do. And then going back to Obi now, for somebody who was able to gather 6 million votes in Labour Party, and then he left that party, and then I don't know, Obi has some kind of boldness,
that will be
confidence that we need to explore,
that will be the highest level of unseriousness you will find in a politician. I'm not sorry to say this, but the point is, if you could, the argument in some quarters has been, why can't you stay in that party? If you gathered 6 million votes with that thing Baba Ahmed, right? You could do much more. If you waited in that party, build that party, resolve all party crises, play good internal politics, and then explore again in the year 2027. If Obi had been in the Labour Party right now, I can be very sure that there will be no one in that party to challenge him for that.
Honest, even when he got
because he had it on a platter,
he was not.
But the problem is,
stressed.
the problem is, if you are not, he's not always satisfied. He wants more, and now his more has taken him to the ADC. Let's see what will happen.
Is that I don't know how to say this, but then I think there's a bit of disadvantage. Why do I say that? Because when he left Labour Party, some obedient did not live with him.
That's what I said. I said
exactly.
It earlier.
And that the problem is, the only thing is, we don't know. That's why I say something, anything can happen. Obi can go back to Labour Party. Honestly.
We'll see what happens. At least they still have a few days to decide what they will do.
Exactly.
I think that will be less than 2 weeks. Within that period, anything can happen.
Expect shocking.
There will be shockers. Migrations will happen. But then what will happen is that people will now begin to learn how to play actual politics, because the new Electoral Act has stated clearly that you cannot do this and do that. So it's handicapped some people in some way, and they really have to be cautious about it. You cannot blame INEC anymore, because even before now, the rules have been placed out there. So you cannot say, I did not know. So it's quite clear. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
It's not an excuse. People will learn politics by force.
By force, by fire, by force. All right, let's help you plan your day. This morning is a convenient place to leave this topic. And then we'll be starting with the ancient metropolitan city of hospitality. We'll take weather report this morning. And in Ibadan, weather in Ibadan southwest in Oyo State right now is currently at 25 degrees Celsius. It will rise by 5 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius later in the morning, mostly cloudy with humidity at 4%. And by afternoon, it rises a little bit further by 3 degrees Celsius to 33 degrees Celsius, remaining mostly cloudy, humidity climbing to 12%. It drops in the evening to 28 degrees Celsius, remaining mostly cloudy, humidity at the bare minimum, and that is 1%. And overnight, it drops further to 26 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy, humidity at 3% in the ancient city of Ibadan today.
And from Ibadan, let's cross to Lagos, where it feels like 33 degrees Celsius. Later in the morning is expected to be around 30 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 2%. In the afternoon, we have 32 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 2% as well. In the evening, it drops to 29 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy around 0%. And overnight, it drops further to 28 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy around 3%. And that's what we have for Lagos this morning.
Right, moving from Lagos to the gateway state, and that is Abeokuta in Ogun State. Right now, weather in Abeokuta is currently cloudy and is at 30 degrees Celsius. And it will not be so different later in the morning because it will just rise by 1 degree Celsius to 31 degrees Celsius. It will be mostly cloudy with humidity at 1%. It will be cloudy in the afternoon, and it will rise to 34 degrees Celsius with humidity climbing as high as 24%. But it drops to 28 degrees Celsius in the evening, mostly cloudy, and there's 0 chance of humidity. And overnight, it will be partly cloudy. Weather drops to 26 degrees Celsius, humidity at 2% in Abeokuta, Ogun State today. From
Abeokuta, we cross the Port Harcourt Rivers. Weather feels like 22 degrees Celsius, and later in the morning is expected to be around 28 degrees Celsius, cloudy around 4%. In the afternoon, we have 30 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 0%. And in the evening, it drops to 24 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 3%. Overnight, it drops to 22 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 5%. And that's what we have for Port Harcourt Rivers this morning.
All right, moving away from the south this morning, we'll head straight to the north central, and that is the largest state in Nigeria, whether in Suleja, Niger State right now. It's currently at 25 degrees Celsius, quite cloudy. And later in the morning, it rises by 4 degrees Celsius to 29 degrees Celsius. It will be mostly cloudy with humidity at 1%. By afternoon, it rises again to 34 degrees Celsius, remaining mostly cloudy. Humidity will be at 6%. And overnight, it drops to 30 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy, humidity at 2%, and it drops further to 27 degrees Celsius overnight, remaining mostly cloudy with humidity at 3% right there in Suleja, Niger State today.
And from Suleja, we cross to Kano Municipal. Weather feels like 30 degrees Celsius this morning. Later is expected to be around 34 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 0%. And in the afternoon, we have 39 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 0%. In the evening, it drops to 33 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 0% as well. And overnight, it drops further to 28 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 0%.
And still in the north central, this morning we head straight to the Federal Capital Territory, and that is Abuja, the FCT. Right now, weather in Abuja is currently at 24 degrees Celsius, cloudy, just like in Suleja, and of course later in the morning it rises again to 29 degrees Celsius, cloudy with humidity at 1%. By afternoon, it goes higher to 34 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy, humidity remaining at 1%. Overnight, it drops to 29 degrees Celsius, remaining mostly cloudy, humidity also remaining at 1%. And overnight, it drops again to slightly to 27 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy, humidity at 6% in Abuja this morning.
And of course, from Abuja, let's cross to Maiduguri, Borno. Weather feels like 31 degrees Celsius. Later in the morning is expected to be around 38 degrees Celsius, mostly sunny around 7%. In the afternoon, we have 40 degrees Celsius, partly cloudy around 0%. In the evening, it drops to 33 degrees Celsius, clear around 0%. And overnight, it drops further to 30 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy around 0%. And that's what we have from Maiduguri, Borno this morning.
And that's all we can take on Weather Report this morning. Do well to link up with us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast, and on X, formerly Twitter, at Dominion Cast. You can watch us live on our website at www.dominion.org.ng, dominion.org.ng. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Dominion Broadcast and our Facebook page at Dominion Broadcast Television. It is time to go on a quick break. And when we return, we take the news. We'll be back.
Live from the heart of the action. Welcome to the nerve center of Next Level Broadcasting.
This is the OB van, where the studio meets the street.
Equipped with cutting-edge cameras, crystal clear audio, real-time switching, and broadcast control, we don't just capture moments, we deliver the experience live.
Anywhere, anytime, from stadiums to red carpets, breaking news to buzzing festivals, weddings, birthdays, and all sorts of ceremonies. We bring the world to your screen in real time.
It's not just a van, it's a complete mobile production house, a command center, a broadcast beast.
This is more than a broadcast. This is the OB van difference. Live, loud, limitless.
Ready to go live? Like never before. Book the OB van today and take your event to the world. One powerful broadcast at a time.
To book, call 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Email marketing@dominion.org.ng or visit our socials on Instagram at Dominion Broadcast.
Dominion Broadcast, your channel of choice.
Hello and welcome to Daybreak News on Dominion Television, Ibadan. I'm Oluwayemi Adelakon. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has called for urgent and coordinated action to tackle flooding across the country as the federal government unveiled the 2026 annual flood outlook in Abuja. Speaking at the event organized at the presidential villa, Tinubu said his administration had prioritized flood control in line with his food security agenda, noting that interventions had been carried out in vulnerable states such as Benue, Kogi, Bayelsa, Rivers, and Adamawa. The president emphasized that the annual flood outlook remains a key tool for early warning and preparedness and commended its release ahead of the rainy season. He then urged the Ministries of Water Resources and Marine and Blue Economy to develop strategies to better harness Nigeria's water resources, noting that the country could gradually shift from an oil-dependent economy to a more sustainable water-driven one. Atiku Bagudu said that planning is a constitutional responsibility for everybody occupying a position of authority in the country, assuring that the executive is ready to work with the National Assembly for the effective implementation of the nation's development plans. Bagudu spoke at a two-day national dialogue organized by the National Assembly Joint Committee on National Planning and Economic Development in conjunction with the offices of the Vice President, the Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning, the Minister of Finance, and the Budget Office of the Federation. He said the executive will work with the National Assembly to address the gaps between the budget process, implementation, and objectives of national development plans to ensure proper linkage and coordination to achieve Nigeria's development quest. He added that without the support of the National Assembly, the reforms undertaken by the Tinubu administration would not have been possible. The Nigerian army has stepped up its offensive against bandits in Bauchi State, leading to the destruction of several camps, including the notorious Azuki and Hari camps, significantly disrupting criminal activities in the area. A report from Army headquarters in Abuja explained that troops of the 33 Artillery Brigade, working in collaboration with the Office of the National Security Advisor, carried out a major clearance operation in the dodging Madam Forest, recording fresh successes in ongoing clearance operations across criminal enclaves in Bauchi. In a related development, troops conducted a follow-up operation in Mainamaji as part of effort to exploit gains from recent airstrikes on bandit hideouts. Meanwhile, the DIC has launched a counter-ambush intelligence and movement security course to counter the threat caused by the rise in frequency of terrorist ambush targeting operational bases, convoys, patrol teams, and logistics movement. Speaking at the course opening ceremony, the Chief of Defense Intelligence, Lieutenant General Emmanuel Ndiande, said the Defense Intelligence Agency's role remains central to national security, and as intelligence provides the foundation for effective operations, enabling troops to anticipate threat, guide decisions, and protect national interest. Represented by the Deputy Chief of Defense Intelligence, Air Vice Marshal Balarabi Maman, Lieutenant General Ndande said Nigeria faces complex and evolving security challenges, which are increasingly adaptive and coordinated. The CDI emphasized that the course aims to equip participants with the requisite knowledge and practical skills needed to disrupt ambush plans and respond decisively when confronted. The NEMSA has been given a 2-year ultimatum to exit the federal government's payroll and depend solely on its own internally generated revenue. Speaking at the inauguration of the agency's board in Abuja, the Minister of Power, Chief Adebayo Adelabu, recalled that they took his intervention at the National Salaries and Wages Commission 2 years ago for the government to retain NEMSA on its payroll. According to him, the government was removing NEMSA from its wages with the excuse that the agency should generate revenue for its own salaries and overhead. Adelabu said he, however, prevailed on the government to allow the agency 2 more years because it is still a fledgling organization. In business, the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) reported the Nigeria's headline inflation rate rose to 15.38% in March 2026, reflecting a slight increase from the 15.06% recorded in February. This means on a month-on-month basis, Nigeria's headline inflation stood at 4.18%. Similarly, the country's food inflation increased to 14.31% in March from 12.12% last month, according to the latest data released by the MBS. And in sports, Super Eagles coach Eric Chell has opened the door of the national team to top players in the Nigeria Premier Football League and uncapped Nigerian players abroad ahead of the 2026 Unity Cup, which will be played at the Valley, home of Charlton Athletic in London. The Unity Cup is an invitational tournament played outside the FIFA international window, and Nigeria will defend the title they won last year against India, Jamaica and Zimbabwe when the 2026 edition takes place in London from May 26 to 30th. Encouraged by the opportunity to maintain momentum and further integrate new players into the Super Eagles, Chell has hinted that MPFL stars and foreign-based uncapped players will be given opportunities while regulars will return for the June international friendlies against Portugal and Poland. You can visit our website on www.dominion.org.ng to watch us live and interact with us. You can also follow us across our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn at Dominion Broadcast and X at Dominion Cars. And the hence Daybreak News on Dominion Television. I'm Uluwayemi Adelako saying thank you for watching and good morning.
Need a professional space to bring your vision to life? Dominion Television Studios offers state-of-the-art facilities perfect for your next broadcast, commercial, corporate video, or live event. With flexible rental options, cutting-edge equipment, and a supportive team, we provide the perfect environment for high-quality productions. Unleash your creativity. For bookings, email us at marketing@dominion.org.ng. Call us on 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast and on X at Dominion Casts. Book your space today. Dominion Television, your channel of choice.
Live from the heart of the action. Welcome to the nerve center of Next Level Broadcasting.
This is the OB van, where the studio meets the street.
Equipped with cutting-edge cameras, crystal clear audio, real-time switching, and broadcast control, we don't just capture moments, we deliver the experience live.
Anywhere, anytime, from stadiums to red carpets, breaking news to buzzing festivals, weddings, birthdays, and all sorts of ceremonies. We bring the world to your screen in real time.
It's not just a van, it's a complete mobile production house, a command center, a broadcast beast.
This is more than a broadcast. This is the OB van difference. Live, loud, limitless.
Ready to go live like never before? Book the OB event today and take your event to the world. One powerful broadcast at a time.
To book, call 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Email marketing@dominion.org.ng or visit our socials on Instagram @Dominion Broadcast.
Dominion Broadcast, your channel of choice.
Welcome you back. Thank you for staying with us. This is Newspaper Headlines and Analysis. I'm Oluwayemi Adelakun. And this morning we start with this day newspaper, and I have the banner headline that says Atiku Tinubu can't win free fair election in 2027. That Atiku is a kicker. It's coming from him. It's saying that it's not possible for Tinubu to win free fair election come 2027. And then this one is coming from the national chairman of the APC, Watda. ADC order should put their house in order. So I think we're saying it's not possible for him to win the election free and fair. We'll see, because I mean we are getting closer to the general elections, and of course he watched that. He's saying the ADC should put their house in order, while ADC is accusing the APC of trying to cause issues for the party. And these are the issues that we have in this country, speaking about political parties. And away from that, we also have this headline that says ex-VP says 2027 will be his last shot as presidency, and then we flogged that this morning extensively. And then I think it's noble. That statement is noble, coming from the former vice president, to say this will be the last time I will try to contest for presidency. He's contested severally since 1992. With an euro. And away from that, let's also check this one that says amid higher energy, food commodity prices, inflation rebounds to 15.38%. Severe in Bayelsa, Sokoto, Bauchi, others. CPPE says resurgent threatens gains of this inflation. I think inflation has been a major problem in this country. There was even a time in this country it was referred to as economic downturn. And then since then, up until now, I mean, the inflation, sometimes it comes down, it goes up again. It's not static, and it's a problem, because I mean we should be able to actually find a way to stabilize the economy. And away from that, let's cross to Daily Sun this morning. I have the banner headline that says insecurity escalating to war situation. That's coming from Marawa. With these riders, rising terror concerning. That's coming from Afenifere. U.S. lawmaker demands Matawali's removal. It's a problem, because at the end of the day, how these people view us in the global space, I mean, speaks a lot. And that's why our country was referred to as, I mean, a country of particular concern because of issues like this. And then the security, has become like a demon, that is, causing terror, I mean, for the entire country. I mean, there was a time in this country when insecurity was majorly in the north, in the northern part. But then if you look closely, you see that, I mean, it's been able to spread across board in this country, and it's not something to be proud of, basically. And then away from that, let's also check this one that says 33 state FCT face high flooding. Federal government warns Osun, Enugu, Kogi, Adamawa, 6 other states risk cholera overflow. Don't forget we're in the period of, intense rain, even rain yesterday in Ibadan. Of course, we need to be careful. And then away from this, you see, the people who always blame the federal government to say they don't put the necessary measures in place. But then we also ourselves, we must be intentional about, not allowing flood to actually, disrupt or maybe destroy properties. Because sometimes when rain is about to fall, or maybe when rain is falling, you see some persons, they take their refuse in their house and then they pour it. And then because they expect that the rain will help them carry it, they don't want to take the stress of maybe going somewhere else to dump their refuse. And it's a sad one. You can't see something like this in developed countries. And it's a problem because even people on the street, they drop stuff on the ground because, no one is going to caution them. No one is going to sanction them. We need to do better because all of those things contribute to the issue of flood in this country. And we must be careful, especially in times like this in this country, because we expect, more rainfall in this country. And away from that line, let's also check this one that says 2027, my last in presidential contest, coming from Atiku, hints at likely consensus arrangement for ADC candidates. Yes, need I mention that Atiku also said that whosoever emerge as the candidate is going to support that person, and then he's not going to contest that. And away from that, NNPCL must account for 210 trillion naira by April 29. Senate insists. Don't forget that there was a time that Bayo Ojulari was invited for questioning, and then he said, I don't think he didn't grant that interview. And then this will always happen because some persons will say, you didn't appoint me. The president appointed me. So if anything, I am accountable to the president and not to you. And it's a problem because 210 trillion naira, we've been talking about this amount for months now. But then the Senate is insisting that NNPCL must account for that money. It's a huge amount of money. We can't just sweep this under the carpet. Away from that, APC chair, Iwatda replies David Mark's claim on Tinubu running one-man show, and then he's trying to reply David Mark, who said Tinubu is running one-man show. Really, let's talk about it. Do you think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is running one-man show? Because according to his loyalists, the president has a way of involving every single person in his administration. He has a way of placating even people who are not comfortable with certain policies, and that's why these people will always try to support him. So now David Mark saying the president is trying to run a one-man show. His loyalists might not agree with that, but then it's left to the public to decide whether it is indeed a one-man show or not. And then from the Daily Sun, let's cross to Vanguard newspaper, and I have the bonnet line that says amend new tax law. PIA Electricity Act now, that's coming from NESG, says definition of small businesses and tax act should align with definitions in Comma Act. Identifies need for state legal frameworks to foster collaboration with discourse. Adds amendment will foster enabling business environment. Power of Nigerian, OGSPN, backs NESG. I think there was a particular headline that we read yesterday where the president said the colonial tax, made a lot of Nigerians to be poor. And then we said that 66 years after independence, we cannot continue to blame the colonial masters for our woes. It's high time we decide to take great decisions that can better the lives of Nigerians. And then speaking about this new electoral act, most Nigerians are not even comfortable paying the tax because according to them, they are not seeing the dividends of this tax system. Maybe the government needs to do a lot in terms of making sure that Nigerians can trust them with their money. And away from that, we also have this one that says Nigeria not at war with itself, but enemies. That's coming from Information Minister Idris. Then who are the enemies? I think that's the big question right now. Because if Nigeria is not at war, yeah, we are not at war, but then a lot is going on in the country. Ethnic rivalry, insecurity, economic downturn. There was even a time the president said, okay, the country is okay, the economy is okay, but then looking at the stats, I think it's contradicting in a way. And away from that, we also check this one that says ACF raises alarm, says insecurity has reached state of war. 6 soldiers, women killed in fresh Boko Haram attack on military formation in Borno. We've seen a lot of cases in Borno, in Plateau, in Niger, in Kwara. all these cases, speaks to the issue of insecurity, and then it's a problem in this country. So I think we need to do more. Don't forget there was a time some governors were calling for state police, and then some are even saying, how sure are we that will provide or produce result? Can we try it first? Can we see whether it's going to do, or whether it's going to change the dynamics of the entire situation? And then it's a lot to talk about, speaking about insecurity. And away from that, let's also check this one that says federal government drops terrorism financing charge against ex-AGF Malami and son. Don't forget, we've been on this matter since last year. He's been arrested, released at some point, granted bail, shorties, this and that. Now it's been, they've dropped the terrorism, charge against him and his son. Maybe we expect more declaration, or let me say more news concerning this matter. Another headline is saying 2027 is my last attempt. Nigerians should trust me, and that's coming from Atiku. And of course, from Vanguard, let's cross to Daily Trust this morning. We have this headline that says insecurity Nigerian state of war. That's coming from the ACF. We've spoken about that. Another headline is saying prices of yam, cassava, groundnut push inflation to 15.38%. I mentioned earlier that inflation is quite biting, and one problem that we've seen consistently in this country is that we've not been able to stabilize. Today, we are able to, it drops, tomorrow is up again. And that's the same problem we are seeing with the Naira to dollar as well. It's a problem in this country, and that's why inflation is really high. If care is not taken with what is going on, away from yam and cassava, it might affect all the products, all the, food items as well in the market. And don't forget, when that happens, it's going to affect majority of Nigerians, because so many persons are still, under that level of still trying to make sure they feed properly 3 times a day. So now, if the price should go up, how are people supposed to afford that? And away from that, let's check this one that says Brigadier General Brema, other soldiers buried in Borno State. That's a sad one, because recently in the last few days we had the report that he died while he was trying to start the vehicle, and the vehicle could not start. And some persons were asking, is it a case of internal sabotage? Maybe some persons, from the inside are working with these people, and then they tampered with the vehicle. Is it a problem of fuel? So many questions, that Nigerians are asking. Up until now, we've not heard the major reason why the vehicle did not start. But then the Brigadier General died, and then away from that, there was other Brigadier Generals have also lost their lives, because of situations like this. And then majorly the president will just, say his, condolence speech, and then Nigerians will move on. If care is not taken in this country, people might begin to lose their compassion. They hear 120 persons died and they move on. Okay, we've seen more than that. 100 persons died and they move on. It's not good for the image of this country. I think at this point we need to take a break. Thank you for being a part of this session. And then we take a short break. When we come back, we move on to the big story. I'm Oluwayemi Adelakun. Please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Need a professional space to bring your vision to life? Dominion Television Studios offers state-of-the-art facilities perfect for your next broadcast, commercial, corporate video, or live event. With flexible rental options, cutting-edge equipment, and a supportive team, we provide the perfect environment for high-quality productions. Unleash your creativity. For bookings, email us at marketing@dominion.org.ng. Call us on 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast and on X at Dominion Cast. Book your space today. Dominion Television, your channel of choice.
Live from the heart of the action. Welcome to the nerve center of Next Level Broadcasting.
This is the OB van, where the studio meets the street.
Equipped with cutting-edge cameras, crystal clear audio, real-time switching, and broadcast control, we don't just capture moments, we deliver the experience live.
Anywhere, anytime, from stadiums to red carpets, breaking news to buzzing festivals, weddings, birthdays, and all sorts of ceremonies. We bring the world to your screen in real time.
It's not just a van, it's a complete mobile production house, a command center, a broadcast beast.
This is more than a broadcast. This is the OB van difference. Live, loud, limitless.
Ready to go live like never before? Book the OB van today and take your event to the world. One powerful broadcast at a time.
To book, call 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Email marketing@dominion.org.ng or visit our socials on Instagram at Dominion Broadcast.
Dominion Broadcast, your channel of choice.
Good morning and welcome to The Big Story, your trusted platform for in-depth analysis of the issues shaping our nation. Today, we take a critical look at a long-standing question in Nigeria's political journey, the unfinished business of federalism, decades after independence and over 2 decades into democratic rule. One fundamental concern persists. Why do states still depend heavily on Abuja to survive? From the monthly FARC allocations to limited control over resources, many argue that Nigeria's federal structure remains largely centralized in practice. But is this sustainable for a country as diverse and complex as ours in Nigeria? Adding a new dimension to conversations are emerging discussions around the possible introduction of a regional layer of government. Will this move finally address the imbalance or merely complicate an already fragile structure? And perhaps, most importantly, what does true local government autonomy look like? And can it genuinely bring governance closer to the people if truly implemented? And to break this down, I am joined by a seasoned journalist and keen observer of Nigeria's political landscape, Sam Nwoko, a deputy editor at the Nigerian Tribune. And also, I have Afolabi with me in the studio, a seasoned public affairs analyst. Now, very quickly, let's check what we have today. Nigeria's federalism has often been described as federal in name, unitary in practice. While the Constitution outlines a system that should empower states, the reality tells a different story. And over the years, we have seen states rely almost entirely on allocations from the federal government, especially the states that are said to be poor or called civil servant states, with internal generated revenue contributing only a fraction of many cases. This dependence has not only weakened fiscal responsibility, but also raised serious questions about accountability and innovation at the subnational level. At the heart of the debate is resource control, revenue allocations, and the concentration of power at the center. Critics argue that until states have greater control over their resources and decision-making processes, true federalism will remain elusive. So, whispers of a return of regional governance, a system Nigeria experimented with the early years of after independence. Many are asking whether this could be missing link. Could regions drive economic competitiveness, reduce bureaucratic bottlenecks, and restore a sense of autonomy among federating units? At the grassroots, the issue of local government autonomy remains equally critical. Despite constitutional recognition, many local governments still operate under the heavy influence of state governments and governors. If autonomy is fully realized, could this unlock development at the community level, improve service delivery, and deepen democracy? So these are the questions shaping today's conversation, and the stakes could not be higher for Nigeria's political and economic future. Gentlemen, good to have you in the studio. Sam Nwoko of the Nigerian Tribune, Deputy Editor of the Nigerian Tribune.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you here. Afolabi, a seasoned public affairs analyst. Good to have you on the bench this morning.
Good morning, viewers.
I will start with you, Sam Nwoko. Nigeria operates a federal system on paper and looks unitary in practice, just like I mentioned earlier. But many argue that it is centralized in practice. From your perspective, what exactly is unfinished when we talk about our federalism in Nigeria?
Thank you. If I would have taken it in a one-sentence answer, I would say what is unfinished in our federal system of government is the people's constitution. If we had a constitution where the federating units, where all the various interests are represented, and we sit down to say, okay, this is how we want to run our federalism, it should have been a completely different ballgame. But what we have today is a constitution that was handed down, a constitution that was hurriedly prepared, that was not even available for the swearing in of Obasanjo and the governors in 1999, on May 29, 1999. So that constitution has remained one of the major problems militating against our federalism.
If the constitution is the problem, then what's the solution?
The solution is amending the constitution. But
we had national confab.
Since 1999.
And we have senators on the floor of the House. We have members of House of Representatives. Okay. Why are we still here?
Let's even disentangle them. First, we had a confab. When Obasanjo tried to use the confab, he was shut down. They said he wanted to spend 6 years after spending 8 years. 8 years. In fact, they said it was third term. Senator Abiola Ajimobi of blessed memory told us in an interview, he said, when we look at it very well, what Obasanjo was pursuing is very good, because there were 197 items of amendment on that constitution. He said, but the only one everybody was highlighting was third term, third term. When he made that explanation, I was taken aback. I said, Your Excellency, distinguished senator then, before he became a governor, I said, distinguished senator, everything we know about this constitution amendment and all the issue on the ground is third term. Is it not that the man came, brought money, loaded the House, National Assembly for? He said it wasn't just that. That is one about confab. If you remember also, during Jonathan, he hinted at 6-year single term, a result of the confab. You know, he was shut down also. They say, no, he wants another term. He wants to extend 10-year extension and things like that. I interviewed Chief Ayogunlade. He was a one-time national minister of national planning, and part of the people who sat down to do one of the conferences. I think it's the Abacha conference. Yes, himself, Barnabas Gemade, and a whole lot of other Nigerian patriots.
Stakeholders.
That was, including Alex Ekweme and so on, that was where they decided the 6 geopolitical zones. They recommended 6 vice presidents, one coming from each zone. A kind of homegrown solution to Nigeria's federalism problem. And he said each of the vice presidents was bent to handle one sphere of our national economy. Defense, the economy, infrastructure, and so on. You know, 6 vice presidents, each from the 6 geopolitical zones,
saddled with different responsibilities.
Each would be saddled with different responsibilities. They were recommended, but they took, when the military would hand in that constitution, they took what they liked from the conference, injected it haphazardly, and hurriedly handed the constitution to the civilian rule and went away. When he spoke about it, the day the interview was published, I was on my way. I was driving to Umuahia from Ibadan. And on arriving somewhere they call the 7.5, just approaching Umuahia, a call came in. I didn't know the number, so I had to pick the call. And they started blasting me. Hey, you are Southern promoter, you are this and that. I said, but the person that said all these things is in the interview you read, and you are accusing me. Shouldn't I not have interviewed him? If you have views to express, I will gladly grant you an interview. You explain what is wrong with what the man has said. Why I'm saying that is that certain interests want us to remain the way we are. So for me, you know, like I said, if we say we should disentangle it one by one, then we have the National Assembly. Senator Teslim Folani one day told us in a gathering, he said, if we can get the constitution amended and remove certain things from the exclusive list, we are going to move forward. One of the things he was advocating for, which he fought for, was the power, electricity power. One of the major things he did was to say, we are going to remove this from exclusive list. At least we have been able to achieve that. So if you look at it, look at our political journey from 1999, from which we had got to the age of reason. Of course, I wouldn't be able to speak as much as I am speaking now on the earlier republics because I wasn't grown enough. But the ones I know, if you look at it very well, you will see that from 1999 till now, certain forces are holding the country down, and they derive their powers from the constitution. So for me, that constitution is the number one problem.
Okay, let me come to you, Afolabi. Now, the dependence, the failure of dependence on the federal government, how we have failed so far, is it a leadership failure? Or it is more or less like a structural flaw embedded in the Nigerian constitution?
Well, when you talk about
he mentioned something similar to that.
Yes, when you talk about the constitution, it's a document that is meant for us, that is for us to move
more
country.
Like a guide.
Yes, like a guide, the document that will tell us what we need to do at the time we need to do it, and those that need to do it. But when you talk about the leadership failure, yes, I would agree with you that most of what we have is the leadership failure. We have countries who use a unwritten constitution, who use fragile constitution, that they know that this is what they want to do, and they go about doing it. One thing I want to pick for what our brother has said here is that the group of people who does not mean Nigeria well, who felt that it is at the point of disarray, they will end their money, they get enriched, they end their power, and that has kept Nigeria to what it is today. And that is where we are unable to move forward. You see, when you talk about the constitution, yes, the constitution can be written. We have people who have been elected to represent us at various stages, at the Senate and at the House of Rep, even at the House of Assembly for the state. But you ask them a question: what have you been able to achieve? You point out Senator Teslim Folani now advocating for a state autonomy for electricity build-up, so that we will not depend solely on the federal grid that everybody believes in. If state could generate their electricity, the fact that to by now, 2026, there will be nobody complaining of power failure. It means that your state will have been depending on the generation of their own electricity somewhere and paying very well into the revenue. And the people it will improve their production and then the market force, you know. People will be depending on that, and that will be a good achievement. But you see, some people felt that they are in power in their own domain, and they have been because of that, pulling us down. They are part of people in the House of Rep, part of people in the House of Senate. Many of them have gone there. You will see them on TV sleeping, unable to put together a particular policy or bills that will take Nigeria through to the next level. They tend not to understand that Nigeria will not remain the same, even if they remain there for the next 10 years. We're talking about 1999 to 2026. And 1999 to 2026 is not just 10 years, it's not just 20 years. And we're talking about a country that should have moved higher than now. Not by this time, when people be complaining of power failure. Not at this time, we're talking about food insecurity. Not at this time, we're talking about bad health facilities. Not at this time, we'll be kind of bad educational system. Not at this time.
When should we be talking about that?
We should have gone ahead of this. If we had the best people that will talk, the leadership that will implement policies, the people with willpower.
Are you attributing this to legislative failure?
Yes, that is legislative failure. Also, because if you want to get your governors to work, the House of Assembly, State of Assembly will be a kind of house that can put their governor on toes. You know, not the rubber stamp.
If I may even come in on the legislative failure,
oh, God.
We tend not to understand that in the hierarchy of democracy, the legislature comes first.
Yes.
Okay.
And in coming first, it means that the legislator is the determinant of democracy. If there is no legislature, there is no democracy. So you are already on a unitary system of government. But let's keep that aside. Look at legislative assembly as it is. When Obasanjo was the president, in 1999, I became a reporter, full blast, you know, from NYSC, I became a reporter. That was when I saw House of Assembly in action. After 1999, we have been degenerating. We have been falling from the height of standard, and we've been continually degenerating into the abyss. So much that in 2015, when Buhari came, the National Assembly, through its leader, the head of the National Assembly, who was Ahmed Lawan, told Professor Ita Sege that whatever the president wants us to do, we will expressly approve it because we know it is important for Nigeria. Look at where it has left us. Obasanjo did not enjoy that. The first term of Buhari, he did not enjoy that because we had an assembly that will ask questions. Yes. We had an assembly that stood up, you know, yes, under Bukola Saraki. Before then, we had an assembly that stood up to Obasanjo. Otherwise, the so-called third term would have sailed through if it was what we have now. So when you look at it, at the core of our democracy, or at the core of democracy anywhere, is the legislature. Why do you think Trump is faltering in his war in Iraq?
The legislature.
It's because the legislature said no. And they sat and said, guy, we are not going ahead with this. So he has to begin to look for means of pulling out of that war without pulling out of the place of honor. You know, because shame, 9 days in face like that. Now, when you now look at Nigeria's legislature, the kind of things that, look at somebody like Akpabio, a Senate president, the head of Nigeria's first arm of government, defending an independent electoral commission, a so-called electoral commission that is supposed to act independently. So, there is a collaboration against
the people,
active democracy in Nigeria, and by extension, against the people of Nigeria. I still blame it on our recruitment process, and at the root of all that is the Constitution. How do we amend the Constitution? Look at the process they had been on since 1999. I know lawyers will say the 1999 Constitution as amended. 1999, sometimes I'll be asking myself, what are these amendments? You hardly see it in function. The electoral law, the Constitution itself, has taken so much cumbersome process to be able to get things off the ground. If we were serious as a nation, from 1999 till now, we would have expunged all those areas that are hindering Nigeria's growth. But no. I remember when they brought up the issue of electronic voting, they shut it down. They said Nigeria was not infrastructurally ripe. The telecom provider said, we are ripe.
We can provide you with this service.
Yes, we can provide you with this service. We have 95% coverage.
Yes.
And then we can work on the remaining 5%.
We did even conduct elections in the place where you have 95% coverage and leave the 5% for the normal, you know. But when you have 95 out of 100%, what do you remain?
You are already a good.
You understand? So, but the legislature said no. And why? It's because they have everything tailored towards satisfying particular interests. So it's a huge problem, and I want to believe that as we are growing, as we are evolving in our democratic process, maybe one day we'll be able to say, here we are. I mean, we can breathe and say we have democracy indeed.
Okay, now let's talk about resource control. Sure. Let's move forward very quickly and talk about resource control. Why do we still rely heavily, state government, why do they still rely heavily on what comes from Abuja? And there's a particular story that came out about a few weeks ago about the chances of a new layer of government. And then, is this going to maybe increase the bottlenecks in governance, or is going to maybe reduce it a little bit? Because if you now have the federal, regional, states, and then local government, is development in sight? Or is this just another layer of government that's going to increase the problems we are facing in the country? Afolabi, you can go first.
Let's first look at it this way.
Because Nigeria wants to strand what we call regional system of government.
Yes, I want
and that was the northern and southern.
I want to believe that we are just like somebody asked to go and test for stash in the lab. We are still testing. But I want to tell you that depending the state, depending on the federal government for survival, could have moved beyond this level if we still have a state house of assembly that is functional.
Are they not functional as we speak? Are they rubber stamp?
They are not functioning. They are not. And that is where many of them from the state house of assembly will not be so bold, so rigid to come out and contest for governors. And that is why I'm waiting to. I've heard. I think call it a rumor that somebody is the speaker. The speaker is dreaming to become the governor.
His words are out there. That's no longer a rumor.
We are waiting. Me personally, I'm waiting because I will ask questions. That is what I want to do, and that is where they should be. You see, like my brother said here, after the days of Obasanjo regime, we've had state governors impeached by the Civil Assembly. We've had state governors bills not passing through. We've had state governors, commissioners sent back home by the Civil Assembly. We've had state governors, agencies sent back home by the State of Assembly because they know what they were doing. They understand their position. They see themselves as a policy, the number one people representing the entire community, the people at the grassroots. They understand that when they leave this place, they go back home and people will ask questions. But right now, it's not like that. You know, when even we now see State of Assembly members giving ticket by their governors to be, you know, buying ticket for them. So you see, if anybody buy you ticket to become a State of Assembly member, if you get there, you become his dog. You listen, you act to whatever he wants. You skate through whatever he brings to you, either good or bad. You just stamp it on. That is it, and that is where Nigeria is going to be falling, and that is what we are facing. You see, we may not need to depend on federal government for allocation when we keep our house in order. When the state knows what they wanted and how to get it, it is very easy. The people are there for you. You have the policy making there. And then we will have people representing us from the state to the national level. The rep members, we are not from Abuja. They were from this side. The Senate the members we're not living in Abuja. They live here. So if anybody will represent us at the Senate level, at the House of Rep level, the person must be somebody who will have been tutored, who will have been groomed, who understands this policy, who is not going to be a rubber stamp person, who understands that whatever policy is putting forward is taking care and is binding on everybody, either good or bad. And in this way, we'll be able to know that, okay, our electricity, we can provide for that. Our internal generation of revenue, this is how we want it. And then, I still don't understand, some roads are still left behind because they are federal roads.
Okay. Let me now. Let me repackage this question for you so you can know where to come from. In the First Republic, Nigeria tried the regional system of government. And some people said it worked so fine at that time, especially for public analysts and commentators. Now, according to this particular story, that says Nigerian Geopolitical Zone Bill 2026, okay? As from October 1st, 2026, Nigerians' 6 geopolitical zones will become official and constitutional organs of government. This means that there will be 4 tiers of administration in Nigeria: federal, zonal, state, and local government. And Nigeria will have 6 geopolitical zones, with each being made up of 7 states. Our constitution will prohibit the creation of any other more states after these 42. Some states were created, according to this particular story I saw. And as part of the restructure, we will abolish the federal allocations regime and replace it with resource control, under which states will remain the federating unit. Revenue distribution will be as follows. States will take 50%. Of course, federation account 20%, geopolitical zones 15%, national trust fund 15%. We shall gradually migrate towards this with the aim of achieving the targeted goal by 2040. So, the question now is, if states now have control over resources, with the little some of these governors have since the removal of fuel subsidy, we have seen the level of the amount of waste we have witnessed, and we have also seen the incompetence of some governors, even for the fact that they sat on the local government funds. So if they now have access to 50% of everything Nigeria makes in their state, then what will we see? And maybe by 2040, just like they mentioned, are we going to see something different to what we currently see?
You see, I will still go back to firm and more quality control in our recruitment processes. Many of the governors would come in banding some credentials which to a large extent are very, very impressive. However, when they get to the seat, they become completely something else, especially those one among them who are not looking for another term of office. In 2006, 2005, 2006, Fayose, because I asked him, I said, what do you think is the problem with our democracy? He said, second term. You see, everything a governor looks for is embedded in a second term. Same thing with the president. He said, if we do away with that
second term in office,
then you will walk, and then people will judge you by what you did, which was what the Abacha confab did that time. If you do your presidency of 6 years single term, you have no right to contest again immediately. You cannot do 2 consecutive terms. It happens in the Catholic Church. If you are in the office, if you are in an office, and if you are elected in as the president, you are to serve for 4 years. After serving for 4 years,
you step aside.
Whether you are the very best anybody can imagine,
somebody else must take over.
Somebody else will take over.
So that gives room for them to judge you
now,
when you are coming back the next time.
Now, what that constitution, what that confab agreed was that if this person is so good that the people want him back, he should at least step aside. Then the people can now demand for him again. Meaning that you are not debarred. You are not barred from running again, but you cannot run consecutively. That is on the one hand, because we are talking about control what can we do if we get more money? Would we still be the same thing? That is on the one hand. So if we don't have a second term syndrome, we'll have a level of control. Then I still go back to the Constitution. We have institutions in this country. We have a whole lot of bodies, laws, policies. In fact, during Babangida, it was at one international conference that a remark was made. They said, Nigeria is not bereft of good ideas and policies. The only thing is that we only have them on paper. Because that time I remember names like Professor Godwin Sogulu, Dr. Chu Okongwu, Kalu Idika Kalu, eggheads, fantastic brains, who we are running. That's when you had them implement DFRI, Directorate for Food, Roads and Rural Infrastructure, which was the original idea of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. You see all these things come to life. But now, we don't have all those things anymore. Everything now is power. The presidency, the president, the presidency. So, if it trickles down like that, as we have in this unitary system, because we are not running a democracy per se, if it trickles down like that till the 2050 you talked about, or 2040, or 20 whatever, and we still have this same constitution, we'll keep running in a circle. Let me tell you one of the things I experienced pre-2000. In 1999, 2000, 2001, I was a correspondent in Rivers State. There was a local government election mandated by the constitution because Dr. Peter Odili, who was the governor, was saying, we are running out of time to conduct local government election. He did not appoint caretaker committees. So when he conducted the election, his party lost about 4 or 5 local governments. He was in PDP, chieftain of PDP. We all know him. He contested in 1999. I remember that Ogubolo was won by APP. Kana was won by APP. All the Ogoni local governments were won by APP, including there are 2 local governments in Okrika land, Ogubolo and Okrika. Okrika local government. Wakrika and yes, Ogubolo was won by APP. So the man said, am I so bad that una no vote for my party? He said, but we try to do well. They said, people told him, they said, it is not about your party. It is about what we wanted. And hey, this man did not owe them their allocations. He did what he was supposed to do. By the time the general election came, the 4 local governments in Ogoni land voted for PDP, and their chairman had become
members of the PDP.
Because he had to work more to make sure that the people are satisfied enough and are convinced to join him. That was when
the allocation were not withheld.
No, not once. That was when Magnus Ngeyabe, who was the minority leader in the State House of Assembly under Rotimi Amechi, joined the PDP. Convinced that, yes, this man means well for us. That is the power of democracy. That's the kind of thing we expect to grow. We expected this would have grown and become more entrenched. But today, instead of the leaf of the coconut to soften,
it's becoming more.
Okay.
So the problem is growing. That's all I'm trying to say. And it all depends. It's getting wiser, and it's becoming more and more problematic for us because the constitution is lying the same way.
All right, thank you, Sam Oko. Very quickly before we go, in 30 seconds, in your view, Afolabi, do you think regionalism will strengthen national unity in any way?
I don't think so. I don't think so because Nigeria is growing. The population that we had when regionality was made was not what we have now. And the kind of intelligent guys that we have now, not only in the intelligence of doing good, but intelligent in doing very, very bad, has also grown in the modern day than what we expected, what we practiced then. If it were to be implemented, I only pray it will not be implemented to be a power tussle between the states and the region. As I submit.
Sam Oko, shortly before we go, I have another question. I know you really want to munch on that, but I have another question for you. Lastly, in 30 seconds before we go, do you think the state governors are the biggest problems in Nigeria's democracy?
I think so. straight off agree with you, because we've had occasions where certain policies are pushed to some 60, 70, 80% level, and governors will say no. When Amechi was the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forums, they went to court and collected a reserved fund, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was saving, who had warned that when we increase salary to 18,000 naira, it was going to affect this. But all we were hearing then was, hey, they have eaten all our money, they are spending our money. So governors are a huge problem. And quickly on regionalism, if we go back to regions the way we had it in the First Republic, it won't work. Because look at a southeast geopolitical zone. It's even relatively homogeneous. Look at a southeast geopolitical zone. It is relatively homogeneous. So they are all Igbo speaking. You know, but the south, in Rivers State alone, I know you have more than 31 languages. Yes. I know. In fact, in Ahoda local government, Ahoda East, Ahoda West, you have a Kimini. In fact, I can begin to list them. In the 27 local governments of Rivers State, the only ones that are homogeneous are Wakrike and Ogubolo. Then the local government, Kana, Gokana, even Tai and Eleme don't speak the same language with Ogoni, and so on and so forth. And when you come to Ikwere, the Port Harcourt City, Ikwere local government, they speak the same languages. And Obi Akpo of our very popular man. Now, all I'm trying to say is that the regions as we had it at that time is now very different from what we have today. And the regions then were growing. They were working and getting to the hinterland. When I worked in Ekiti, people were telling me that Awolowo did this, Awolowo did that, the farm settlements and so on, to make people to be useful for both the community, for themselves, and for the families. Now, take it outside. The regions now, when you break them into, when you go back to the regions, would there be the kind of unity we had in those days?
Back then.
The states have taken over, and each governor would work against this because they have the power and they want to retain power.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this segment of the show this morning.
Thank you for having us.
It's been an eye-opening session with you, and we say thank you for joining us. Now, it has been an engaging and thought-provoking discussion this morning on The Big Story. Clearly, the question of federalism in Nigeria is far from settled. Whether it is the push for true fiscal federalism, the debate over regional governance, or the long-awaited implementation of local government autonomy, one thing is definitely certain. The structure of governance will continue to define the pace and direction of national development. As Nigerians, the challenge lies not just in identifying the problems, but in demanding and supporting reforms that promote efficiency, accountability, and inclusiveness at every level of government. And my sincere thanks to my guest this morning, Sam Nwoko, the Deputy Editor at the Nigerian Tribune, and Afolabi Afolami, a seasoned public affairs analyst, for sharing their insights on this particular topic. I'm Samson Balogun, and this has been The Big Story. Stay with us as we continue to ask the hard questions and explore the issues that matter most. Up next is Trend Watch.
Live from the heart of the action. Welcome to the nerve center of Next Level Broadcasting.
This is the OB van, where the studio meets the street.
Equipped with cutting-edge cameras, crystal clear audio, real-time switching, and broadcast control, we don't just capture moments, we deliver the experience live.
Anywhere, anytime, from stadiums to red carpets, breaking news to buzzing festivals, weddings, birthdays, and all sorts of ceremonies. We bring the world to your screen in real time.
It's not just a van, it's a complete mobile production house, a command center, a broadcast beast.
This is more than a broadcast. This is the OB Van difference. Live, loud, limitless.
Ready to go live like never before? Book the OB van today and take your event to the world. One powerful broadcast at a time.
To book, call 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Email marketing@dominion.org.ng or visit our socials on Instagram @Dominion Broadcast.
Dominion Broadcast, your channel of choice.
Coming back, thank you for staying with us. Of course, that was an intense conversation with the guest and Samson Balogun. And what we have for Trend Watch is saying, I'm more popular than Kwakwanso, Erifai, and Tambua in northern Nigeria. And that's coming from Atiku. So not just asking, can popularity alone win elections? And because these are the issues. I mean, they're even at this stage, they're talking about I'm more popular than you. I think I spoke about the first coalition that brought in President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Obviously, in that political party, he was more popular. But there was never a time that he went on national TV to say, I'm more popular than these persons in the Southwest. So those people decided to come together and then to harness each other's, advantage to their own benefit. So at this point in time, this might cause more issues. Imagine if Erifai, maybe, he's still in the custody of the ICPC, if he gets to read this to say Atiku is somewhere on national TV saying he's more popular than I am. Even Sekwa Kwanso, his own popularity is restricted to Kano. I think we touched that this morning. I don't think this is maybe a very good statement, especially for what is going on within the ADC.
Well, you see, when you talk about politics, it's not just about popularity. It's about acceptance. And it's about track record, precedence. Do you have what it takes to say, oh, because of what I did yesterday, I deserve this from you? That's one big thing. And for Atiku Abubakar, it's not a lie that he has come out to say I'm more popular. He is definitely much more popular than any other person in that political party. You can take that to the bank. And that is because I earlier touched this and said, look, Atiku Abubakar is the only politician in that political party, except for in anywhere in Nigeria, as we speak, is the only politician, aside from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there are structures everywhere in the country that can say, oh, this person is an Atiku person. He's the only person. I also mentioned earlier that, Kwakwanso's structure across the country, they are as weak as anything, including that of Peter Obi. Because now, let me cite an instance. When registration of the ADC started, okay, about 30% of members who registered came from Adamawa State and regions close to Adamawa State, which is Atiku's base. And then 60% of the people who registered to be members of the ADC were from the north. About 13% or thereabouts came from the southwest. Even in Peter Obi's region, the southeast, how many people registered to be members of the ADC? That says about popularity.
They are still waiting. They are online.
So if his popularity is not that much in his own region, that people cannot join him, follow him to a new political party, then it tells how weak his popularity is in the north and in the southwest. Because if you now to separate and they tell people, oh, why did you join ADC? Oh, I followed Peter Obi. Oh, I followed Atiku Abubakar. Oh, I'm here because of Rabi Musa Kokonso. Oh, I'm here because of Malam Nasir Rufai. You see how weak Peter Obi is when it comes to having political structures. You see how weak Rabi Musa Kokonso is in having political structures across the country. But in his base in Kano, you can say, oh, he has, the monopoly of what is going on in there.
Samson, don't you think Peter Obi has a bit of leverage compared to Kwakwanso? Because Obi was able to gather about 6 million votes in the last election. He came third. Yeah.
Yes, and that is when we are talking about a movement that he has since left behind. The obedience movement, which he moved to the Labour Party. That was not Peter Obi. That was a group of Nigerian people saying this is what we want to do. And they picked belief in one person, which was Peter Obi. And that same movement can now tilt towards anywhere else. We just spoke about some of them staying put in the Labour Party. Some of them even saying because you have moved with so kind of people, we are no longer having anything to do with you. And some of them will be apolitical in the next election. Don't be shocked that about 20 to 30% of those who voted the last time and gave him those 6 million votes, they are already in another political party. So who are those people who you think are about 15 million registered voters who registered for the APC? They are Nigerians now. Are they not Nigerians?
They are. Even
who are those who registered to be members of the PDP? They are Nigerians.
Yeah.
And according to what is here now, initially before now, we used to have this, argument about, oh, maybe some of them registered here and also registered here. But as it stands, you register with your NIN. So you cannot register with two political parties. It means that if APC says they have 15 million registered members of a political party, they have 15 million. If Labour Party says we have so number, they have so that number. And if the ADC say this is the number of people that registered, that is the number they have.
Honestly, apart from the fact that people are saying they are trying to inflate these numbers, because there was a time Asha went on national TV.
It is impossible. How do you duplicate NIN?
A certain
it is impossible.
Million, but
because
then,
this is being closely monitored by INEC.
Right. So
okay, because it's not even being done because of the Nigerian people who are members of the party. It is being done about the politicians themselves.
Right.
Now you cannot say, oh, I am a member of a political party, and then the next morning you wake up and say you are now a member of one political party because someone gave you a piece of paper. No, you have to be registered digitally. So your movement will be traced. And if for any reason you left one leg in one political party just to test what is going on in another political party, someone will draw your leg and say, this is where you belong.
You know, you might even leave both. At the end of the day, you might not have a political party.
You can float.
If you want to be sinister about
you can float.
Right.
And then you do.
You might organize a political party of your own.
And by that time, nobody will accuse you with anti-party activities because you have no political party.
Right. Of course. We need to go this morning, but
Absolutely.
good luck to it. It's very obvious that it's more popular, but then certain statement might build resentment. We need to go.
That's why the party will also continue to disintegrate.
Right. We need to go, because if you give something, you can stay here for the next 1 hour. A big thanks to you for joining this session today. My name is Oluwayemi Adelakun. See you tomorrow for Daybreak Live Extra. Bye for now.
All right, Samson Balogun is my name. As I continue to say on this show, keep being good out there, keep being safe. And until tomorrow, when we shall be meeting on another interesting edition of Daybreak Live Extra. Bye for now.